Hey everyone, and welcome to my best books of 2022 video. It's now 2023, so it's time to share some of my favourite books of the last year. This is not going to be in any sort of particular order. This is literally just all of the 5-star books I read last year. So let's go through this because there's quite a few of them. First one I have to mention is Only Ashes Remain. This is the sequel to Not Even Bones by Rebecca Schaeffer. This is the second one in the Market of Monsters series, and this is what I call essentially Wednesday Addams in a book, in the sense that absolutely everybody is incredibly morally grey. It's very violent, very bloody, very gory, and I love this. I can't go into like specifics or anything because obviously this is a sequel, but this was so much fun. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading it, and it just worked so well for me because it was about villains, morally grey characters who are dipping into villainy, all of this kind of thing. I absolutely loved it, and it was obviously a 5-star read, otherwise it wouldn't be on this list. On to something completely different, I also had The Whale Watchers by Dougie Poynter. Now this one I am a little bit biased for because Dougie Poynter is the bassist in McFly, which is my favourite band of all time. He is one of my favourite humans on the planet, and this is essentially a middle grade contemporary book all about two boys who essentially have to try and save a whale who is stuck, and it is a really fun, really reassuring book about climate change, how even the smallest thing can still help with animals, climate change, all of that kind of thing. And it was a really good time and I really enjoyed it, and also there was full page illustrations as well throughout it, which were also really pretty, really nice, and I just generally had a really good time reading this. The other one that I am incredibly biased towards is Space Band by Tom Fletcher, who is also in McFly. He is one of the lead guitarists and lead singers of the band, and this is his latest book. This one is about a group of kids who are in a band who get beamed up into space, and they end up having to perform in an intergalactic Battle of the Bands competition, and this was so much fun. If you're a McFly fan, you will get loads out of this because it's got a whole load of like references to McFly throughout here, and it's sort of like a little Easter egg treasure hunt thing, which is just fun, especially for my fangirl heart. I loved that. I also loved all the references to Tom's life and his kids in here as well, which was absolutely wonderful to read about as well. Also, if you're just not a fan of like Tom's music, or you've never heard it before or anything, I still think this is a good one, especially if you are like quite musical. And also this one came with a soundtrack, which just completed my life, to be honest, because the soundtrack is of the songs that the main character writes throughout this book, and they sort of play these songs throughout the book and things like this, and you get a QR code throughout here where you can listen to the album on Spotify, and it is so much fun. It is written and performed by McFly as well as a band, which is just wonderful, and they're singing songs about pigeons and apes in space and all of this kind of thing. It's just a fun, silly album and a fun, silly book, which I had a great time reading. There's also illustrations throughout, I should mention as well, and like all of this sort of fun formatting, this kind of thing, and I had an absolutely amazing time reading this, so naturally it's on the top of my list as well. And then we go on to a book that I am slightly biased towards simply because I love the author, and that is V. Schwab's Gallant. I read this in a day. I generally do not read books in a day unless they're like Space Band, where the writing is huge and all the rest of it. This is normal sized writing and everything else, and I sped through this like you wouldn't believe. It was creepy, the Crimson Peak vibes were amazing. I love this. The sprayed edges are also gorgeous. I am Schwab trash. This was amazing. I then also discovered a brand new author by author for me with the 2 books I read from hers, which were both 5 stars, and that is Elle McNichols' Show Us Who You Are and A Kind of Spark. Both of these are contemporary middle grades, which is not something I usually read whatsoever, but both of these are own voices for the autism rep. I myself am autistic as well, and it was just the most incredible reading experience to read these because I saw myself so much in these characters in a lot of ways. It was so relatable. It was absolutely wonderful to read. I loved reading both of these. These hit really, really hard, and they are absolutely amazing, and I am forever going to be buying Elle McNichols books. Whatever she comes out with next, I will buy it, because these were both absolutely beautifully written, and I just adored them, and I cannot recommend them enough. I cannot recommend these enough to everyone. They are amazing. I also read Tilly and the Book Wanderers, and this is the first one in the Pages & Co series by Anna James, and this is a love letter to books. That is the only way I can describe it. This is a complete love letter to books, the written word, readers, the power of reading, everything else. I loved it. This is obviously following Tilly, who is a book wanderer, which means she can bring people out of books and have conversations with them, and also go inside books as well and actually have adventures within the pages of books and things like this. And I love that concept. I love the idea of it. All of it was absolutely beautiful and wonderful. I absolutely loved it, and I'm just so in love with this series. I have got the next one in the series. I cannot wait to read that one as well, but this was absolutely beautiful and I absolutely loved it. And if we're talking about gorgeous writing, we have to talk about Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is the first book I've ever read by R.F. Kuang. I was really nervous going into it, and then it also had a ton of like footnotes in here and sort of like literary things, and I was a bit like, oh, I don't know. I was very intimidated going into it, but I ended up absolutely loving this book. I love all of the conversation topics it brought up, all of like the different things it was talking about in terms of like racism and things like this. It really made me think and things like this, but also the storyline was really good. It was really slow, and on paper I should have hated it, but I loved it. I've got nothing else to say further than believe the hype with this book because it was amazing. And then the final physical book I have is Skullduggery Pleasant Until the End. This was amazing. This was the final book in the Skullduggery Pleasant series so far. I'm still holding out hope. We do have a prequel, but I'm holding out hope that we'll get more of Skullduggery, Valkyrie and Tanith and everybody else in like future books and things like this, if there are going to be any. If not, Derek Landy's going to have a lot to answer for to me because I'm going to need more of this. I always need more of this, but I just love this so much. I loved how it wrapped everything up. I loved the final line of this book. Even like the opening like author's note at the beginning, the dedication, had me laughing and just going Landy and things like this. It was perfect. It was perfect Landy. I'll leave a link up above to my reading vlog as well for this book if you want to see my full very spoilery thoughts. So if you haven't read this book, don't watch that video unless you're not planning on reading this book, but you definitely should read the series. But it was such a worthy ending and I loved every single second of reading this. As for a few Kindle ones, I've got to mention Raybearer. I loved the world of this one, the writing of it, the storyline, the fact that there was asexual representation in here as well was just an absolute recipe for perfection for me, and it was absolute perfection without doubt. I also have The Way of Weird. This is a Doctor Strange comic and I loved this first volume. I love the rest of the series as well, but this first volume was just peak incredible, peak Doctor Strange. I love the artwork of it, I love the storyline of it. It was all amazing. Again, I have a reading vlog for this, for the entire Doctor Strange stuff that I was reading, which I'll leave a link to up above, but this was incredible. And then we have something that was a little bit left field for me, and that is Heartstopper, because I don't generally read contemporary YA romance, or any type of romance, or generally any type of contemporary. But I came away from this grinning like an idiot, essentially, and just loving every second of it. I absolutely love this. I've never read Heartstopper in my life. I finally did this year, and now I want to read the rest of the series and watch the TV series, which I still haven't done yet, but it's on my list. I've got a lot of things to watch, essentially, but I have not watched this one yet. I think I was distracted watching Sandman or something, but either way, I loved this comic. I am so excited to read the rest of the series as well. It was so much fun. It's so cute. And I felt all warm and fuzzy inside after reading it, which I'm not used to when I read. I'm not used to feeling warm and fuzzy, so that was actually quite nice. It was it sort of felt like a hug. That's how I describe it. It felt a bit like a hug. That's the only way I'm going to describe it. It felt like I was being hugged, which I apparently really enjoyed. So now I need to read the rest of the series when I get 5 minutes. On to my more normal stuff, I also have War of the Realms, which again I have a reading vlog for, so again, link up above to that. But I loved this one as well. Oh, my heart was pounding throughout it. The artwork was amazing, the storyline was amazing, everything else was amazing. It was incredible to read. I loved every minute of it. Again, like I said, link up above to that video because I was obsessed with this. It was amazing, definitely worth 5 stars. And then the final thing I can actually have, which we'll have a reading vlog for, is Groot. Because I read a couple of Groot comics as well, and this was just the cutest thing I've ever seen. Just Rocket and Groot being besties and everything else was so cute, so adorable. I loved it. It just, again, made me feel warm and fuzzy. It made me feel warm and fuzzy and I loved it. And then the final thing I have to mention is both of the Sandman audiobooks I've read, which is part 1 and part 2. So this is covering the first 6 volumes of the Sandman comic book series, and this audiobook series is done beautifully. It is full cast with a fully cinematic experience listening to it, and I just loved it. I've never wanted to slow down an audiobook to like a normal speed at like ×1 or something so I could really savour it before, and I wanted to do that with this one, but I didn't, admittedly, because I just wanted to carry on listening to it and reading more and more and more and more and finding out more about Dream, what he's doing, his family, the Endless, what's going on, all the rest of it. I just wanted more and more and more, so I just had it going at like 2 times speed, and I just thought it was genius. The way this was done was so good. The voice acting was brilliant. It features some of my favourite actors like James McAvoy, David Tennant, Regé-Jean Page. You've got loads of others in there like Kat Dennings. You also have Riz Ahmed, Taron Egerton, loads of other people as well. Miriam Margolyes, actually, she's in it as well. Loads of other people. Beautifully acted, beautifully done. If you like the comics or the TV show, listen to the audiobooks. They are incredible and thoroughly worth the time. And that is the end of my favourite books for 2022. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me your favourite book of the year. I'd love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a book related emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all of my social media fun to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics, which will have a ton of stuff about all of the characters I've just mentioned who are comic book related. All linked down below if you want to check that out, as well as a link down below as well to my Etsy and Redbubble store, which sells bookish merch, including to this I'd Rather Be Reading t-shirt and a whole load of others if you're interested in that. All of that will be linked down below. Or if you just want to see any more of my videos and see what my 2023 favourite books will be, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. Until next time everyone, bye!